here's the concept of efficiency. If you hire a typist, you want the typist to be able to type as fast as possible. Why? Because the soidus, the background, the most basic levels of skill have to be automatic. And that's true of every chokhmah, every skill, whether it's playing the piano or playing the violin or learning to become a carpenter, right? The basic skills have to be automatic, so then you can concentrate on what you're doing. So let's say you're a good reader. Let's say it takes this much brain power to recognize letters, this much with vowels, this much make the word, understand the word. So there's this much to think about what he's reading. Let's say some with the same amount of brain power, and reading is much less efficient. Therefore, each of the parts of reading take out much more brain power, and he has much less left to think about what he's reading. Let's say you have someone who's highly intelligent, perhaps a genius, and he has a tremendous amount of brain power, right? And really, So one more piece. Chaya, his phone, please. Sorry. And he can think about the reading as much as this chap. And he does quite well in the class. He gets 80s, 90s. But he knows he's brilliant. He knows he has tremendous power and he's not attaining it. So such a person can get into depression, send off psychologists, put him on drugs and things, behave badly, whatever. So we need also to relate to this situation. Could also have a situation where he's got a problem. The basis because of good is perhaps got toothache, or perhaps something else is happening, or who knows what, perhaps got a brother who's chopping him, who's messing him up, or bullying him, whatever. This also can affect the brain. Anything which takes up brain power can affect the amount of brain power available for tachlis, for really thinking about what's reading, and not the basics of actually working out with aleph or a base or whatever it is. Now, I'm using the word brain power. It's not true, because the brain has infinite brain power. The brain is so powerful. It's tremendous. A bee is quite clever, right? It can fly. I can't fly. Can you fly? I can't fly. It can find out where your honey is in sukkahs. It can taste the honey. Yeah, good stuff. She goes back to her friends in the beehive, and she has a dance on the wall which shows all her friends where your sukkah is. So they'll go off, have a party, they come back and they make the beehive. I can't make a beehive. Can you? I can't. A bee has approximately 200,000 neurons in her brain. A baby inside the mother is making 100,000 neurons every minute. Millions, trillions. Each neuron can make a network with 20,000 other neurons. The network of neurons in the brain is more complex than the whole telephone system of the whole world. The capacity of learning of the brain is more than the total internet. Right? So there's no such thing as low IQ. There's no such thing as someone being stupid. No such thing. But what? He doesn't know how to access his chokhmah. Now, there is a limitation. It's true. If Erev Shabbos you're moving the urn onto the blech, and your son comes and says, why is the moon yellow? Not now, please, not now. If you're driving through heavy rain and fog, and someone starts talking to you, no, not now. We do behave as if we have limited brain power, and that's a chelek of the Churban Beis HaMikdash, which we are unfortunately suffering from. It says, only then we have enough brain power to be able to get our chelik in Torah. However, because of the Churban, we have limited brain power, and therefore that's the situation. Now, there's another issue. Speed of information input. Again, this is all science, all results of well-known research, etc., etc. As you can see, it could be sometimes you have the experience where you're davening, and all of a sudden someone comes up to you, or there's a noise, you look away, and you look back, oi, I can't find a place. How come? You forgot where you're up to. Why? Because there's several levels of processing in the brain. Input, thinking, short-term memory. And each of these have drainage. In other words, if insufficient information comes in here, in time, it'll waste away. Thinking, if not thought out properly, it'll waste away. Now, the problem is when someone all of a sudden breaks our concentration, the information hasn't yet been processed sufficiently to get into short-term memory. Therefore, we don't remember it. For example, Ashrei, Ashrei, Ashrei. Right? But if it's not done quickly, it gets lost, gets forgotten. So therefore, there is a time issue in not simply being able to read sufficiently fast, so the input into the brain is sufficiently fast that it can be processed efficiently. Okay. Another background. Regular sensory organs, when they develop, the organ makes a connection with the brain. This part becomes the audio part, this becomes the smelling, speech, touch, one part. And this area becomes a localized area for that sense. The eye is completely different. The eye is made from brain itself. In development, a piece of the brain gets pushed out. That becomes the optic stalk, which then forms into the eye. And this then becomes, the optic stalk then becomes the lens, the optic nerve. In other words, a tremendous amount of processing takes place inside the eye itself, and then it's passed into the brain, where it gets processed in an extremely complex way. See, all over the brain, the information gets passed all over the brain, what, when, how, where, why, and so on. For example, there's some people can suffer a lesion in a part of the brain, and they can look at something, they know what it is, but they can't reach out to they don't know where it is. Or they can have a different lesion, they can know where it is, but they don't know what it is. There is a machlach, one of the songs where there's a lesion in the face recognition part of the brain, and then the person can't recognize his mishpacha, his wife, his children. Terrible, terrible. However, the audio goes to one part of the brain. Goes straight to the hearing sessions, second part, and this is direct and fast. Now, the brain is extremely economical in the way it uses its information processing. So once it gets a result, it cuts out all the other styles. Therefore, enjoying. Sorry, can someone please mute themselves or stop that noise? Thank you. So therefore, in Loshon Kodesh, this doesn't apply for your Taimoni. Your Yemenite, it doesn't apply to you. But there are many oisias which have the same sound. Tov, tes, kuf, kof, soch, samach, sin. For example, in Pashamon, you have lochem and lochem. Once with a chof, once with a ches. In second parasha of Krishna, you have about them. Once with aleph, once with ayin. totally different meanings. In Loshon Kodesh, the oasis making up the word are totally significant. It's like they're like chemical formulae. H2O, H3O, H22, whatever. You make one change, it becomes a completely different compound. So therefore, when the person is taught with phonics, the brain hears the ch sound and immediately cuts off the operation of recognizing where it's the chof or ches. Therefore, the person sounds as if he's reading okay, but in actual fact, he doesn't realize it was a chof or ches. People say, well, he's looking at it anyway. What difference? Because the brain switches off. The sound, the vision is much slower than the sound, and therefore the sound makes a shortcut, a short circuits the system, and therefore when he comes to want to spell it, he doesn't know if it's a chof or a ches. He doesn't know the meaning. It's chof or a ches. And therefore, the person is taught with phonics. He, he sounds as if he's reading correctly, but then there's a major problem in comprehension, because you need in Loshon Kodesh every letter, every nikud, even way you pray, put the stress of the word something about v'havto, change the meaning, and therefore we have to. That's the strength of the Torah, where we have the sight and the sound. The sight is also dominant, and therefore that's the train common for. There's more in your name, but there'll be time later on. Pastor will go into it. Very complicated. But in the end, in terms of data processing, the Masorah is the most efficient way of learning a language. There's a major difference between English and Loshon Kodesh, and therefore Loshon Kodesh is a totally different language system. English, you have words, basic words for each idea. You have library, you have a writer, you have a story, and you relate the story. In Hebrew, you have Sefer, Sifriya, Sofer, Lesaper. But same thing. One slight change the meaning completely. Mlach, Melech, Malach, Moloch, Moloch. Yeah, one's a king, and one is salt, one's an angel, and one's a Razor, and one's a seaman. All Berch, Mlach, same Berch sound. There's no Berch, there's no kind of it, no kind, you know what I mean. In other words, you in English, you only have to look at the word long enough to get the idea from the context. You don't need to look at the word. The very famous oops, no, lost it. Okay, if anyone wants to unmute and try and read this. Any volunteers to read this?
I guess I could do that.
Here we go.
I should do it.
Yeah,
This message serves to prove how our minds can do amazing things, impressive things. In the beginning, it was hard, but now on this line, your mind is reading it automatically without even thinking about it. Be proud. Only certain people can read this. Please.